Hello everyone, welcome back to the course on data science. Myself Jayesh and I will be your course instructor for this course. So today we are going to talk about the multiple linear regression topic. So previously we have already talked on the simple linear regression and today I am going to give you the intuition on this topic. So please guys watch this video up to the end, and if you haven't watched the previous video then I have already uploaded the link in the description below. So please go and check it. तो गाइज आज का ट्यूटोरियल थोड़ा सा लंबा है, आज का कंटेंट भी थोड़ा सा ज़्यादा है, तो प्लीज़ गाइज मैंने हर एक चीज़ बहुत ज़्यादा डीपली समझा के दी है, हर एक कंसेप्ट क्लियर कर दिया है। तो प्लीज़ गाइज आप इसको ध्यान से देखना, और अगर आपको ये वीडियो पसंद आए तो प्लीज़ लाइक करें और अपने फ्रेंड्स के साथ शेयर करिए। अगर आप इस ट्यूटोरियल पर नए हो तो प्लीज़ फटाफट से जाके सब्सक्राइब कर दीजिए। थैंक यू सो मच।
Alright, so this is multiple linear regression dataset. Let's get straight into it. This is going to be fun. 50 startups is going to be venture capitalist fund challenge. Alright, so what do we have here? We have only got 5 columns, but the real interesting thing about this dataset is that this is like a very realistic lifelike business challenge. So you have got 50 companies here, 50 companies in total, and what they have, some extracts from their profit and loss statements from their income. So how much did the company in this given financial year that you are analyzing, and how much did that year did it spend on R&D, how much did it spend on administration like paying employees, paying executives, and so on, and how much it spent on marketing to those of the three. So these are the three major operational spans, I guess, and which state it works in. And finally, what was the profit of that company for that financial year? And the challenge is this dataset is totally anonymous. So we don't know the companies, and also there's only 50 companies. So there is a venture capitalist fund that has hired you as data scientists to analyze these 50 companies and analyze this dataset and create a model that will tell the venture capitalist fund which type of companies it should invest. It is most interested in investing, and their main criteria is the profit. So profit is their dependent variable, the most important variable for them, and these are all independent variable. So you have to create a model which will tell you about profit based on R&D spend in the station market, and state. Now if you want to analyze this dataset with each factor and its effect on profit, then we have to put all columns constant or untouched except any one of the column. Then let's consider putting state column, administration column, and marketing spend column constant except R&D spend. We can observe the correlation between R&D spend and profit. We could analyze whether the profit increases or decreases with increase in R&D spends. Doing the same with the other columns will give you the estimate effect of how the data set is varying, and it would give you statistical insight.
Multiple linear regression, the same thing but many variables. So B0, one constant, and then many combinations or many pairs of B and X, and it can go up to quite a lot, depends on how many regressors you have. Here once again you have got a dependent variable Y, so something you are explaining, but this time the difference is that you think there might be a few causation. So in the case of salary, for instance, it could be how much years of experience you have done, how many other courses you have done, how much you know, how much time you spend at work, or things like that, how much money you make for the company. In terms of students and his grades, your dependent variable could be how much the student has studied for the exam, maybe how much he has left before the exam, how many lectures he has attended throughout the course, and things like that. The constant is still there, and also you have got the coefficients. Before we dive into the section, I wanted to give you a quick heads up that there is a caveat around everything that we are doing with the linear regressions. Linear regressions have assumption, and the assumptions are listed below. Linearity, homestead acidity, multivariate normality, independence of errors, and lack of multicollinearity. And before building a linear regression model, you need to check that these assumptions are true. And then you can only proceed and be sure that you are building a good linear regression model. Well, in this section, we won't be focusing on that. We won't be focusing on the assumption of linear regressions in this section of the course. But if you ever do need to build a linear regression, then make sure that you don't just blindly follow the steps that I present to you in this section of the course, but you do need to go back to the assumptions of the linear regression and research them and make sure that they are correct when you are building your linear regression model. Now we will be talking about dummy variables. So basically the information that we have is the profit of each company or of each startup. Then the R&D spend, the admin spend, the marketing spend. So those three are expenses that the company incurred. And then the state in which it operates, either in Maharashtra or Karnataka. The challenge that we are faced with is that the venture capitalist fund wants to see if there is any correlation between profit and the money that we have been spent on different expenses like R&D, admin, and marketing spend, and also within in which state the company operates. Is there a correlation between profit and all these variables? And how would you go about creating a model to understand how knowing R&D spend, admin, and marketing and state to predict profit? And so, therefore, profit is our dependent variable, and the rest, the blue ones, are all independent variables. And what we need to do is build a linear regression. So, let's go ahead and get started as we would do with the multiple linear regression. We would start by saying y, which is a profit, and it is equal to what? What does that equal to? Well, first of all, there is a constant. In this case, it's a B0, and I have put it under the profit column just because I needed to fit it somewhere. And then we would start adding on these variables into our equation. So then we have got the B1 coefficient times the X1 variable, which is R&D spend in this case. And X1 is actually the amounts, the dollar amount that you see in the R&D column. Then you have got the admin variable, which is X2. It's got a coefficient of B2. Once again, admins are in this case X2 is going to be the dollar amount you see in the admin column. Then you have got the marketing spend X3, which will be the dollar amount that you see in the marketing column. And then you have got the state variable. And here, when we get here, we are questioning that what should we place in our equation for the state column, because we don't actually have a number, we don't have a dollar value or any other types of number to add it into our equation, or we can just add a word into the equation. And the thing here is that the state is actually a categorical variable. So we talked about types of variable before, and we understood that there's a categorical variable and there's a numerical variables. Well, in this case, state is a categorical variables, and therefore we can't add it to our equation. We need to do something about this equation, and the approach that you need to take when you face categorical variables in regression model is you need to create a dummy variables. Let's see how we can do that. First, you need to go through your column and find all the different categories you have. So in this case, we have two categories. So for every single category that you followed, you need to create a new column. For Maharashtra, we are going to create a column called Maharashtra. And for Karnataka, we are going to create column Karnataka. So we are kind of expanding our data set and adding some additional columns into it. And how do we populate those columns? So this is the fun part. To populate these columns, let's start with the Maharashtra column. You find all of your rows where state actually says Maharashtra, and you need to, for those rows, you put a 1 in the Maharashtra column, and then in Karnataka, for all other rows that say Karnataka, basically for all the rows that don't say Maharashtra or whatever else they say, you just put a 0. And then for Karnataka, for the column Karnataka, you need to do the same thing. Wherever row says Karnataka in the state column, you place a 1 in the Karnataka column, or for any other values in the state column, you place a 0 in the Karnataka column. And so you end up with the data set like this. and these two new columns are called dummy variables. And building your regression model from here is very simple. All you have to do is use the Karnataka column, and you are going to be using it instead of the states. You would not using state anymore, and basically you add a variable which is a b4 times d1, and d1 in this case is your dummy variable for Maharashtra, and you don't use the Karnataka column either. So as you can see here, all the information in our data is preserved if we just stick to the one Maharashtra column, because you can tell right away if d1 is a 1, then it's a company that operates in Maharashtra. If d1 is 0, it's company that operates in Karnataka. So we didn't lose any information by including only the Maharashtra column. And we will actually talk more about why you should never include all of your dummy variables column in our regression model. We will talk more about that in the next step when we are talking about the dummy variable trap. But for now, I would like to discuss two things. So first of all, the Maharashtra column or all of the dummy variables, they work as switches. In this case, let's look at the Maharashtra column which we are including in our regression. It works like a light switch. So if it's 1, then you know that this company is in Maharashtra. If it is 0, so off. In this case, the you know that the company doesn't work in Maharashtra. So the dummy variable works like light switches, and that's why they are ones and zeros, and they don't need any other values in them. And the second thing is that when you look at this approach, it might seem biased. So we are including a variable for Maharashtra, and there's a coefficient for Maharashtra. So we basically have this benefit of having a coefficient in your equation for Maharashtra, which is b4. But for Karnataka, there's no coefficient, because when d1 is 0, that's whole loss part of the equation becomes 0, and there's no benefit of coefficient in our equation for Karnataka, and might seem biased at first. But in reality, that's not the case, because the way regression model work is that they will take by default that state or that variable, that dummy variable that you haven't included will become the default situation for this regression model. So basically, what that mean is that the coefficient for Karnataka is going to be included in the constant, that is b0, and by default when d1 is equal to 0, this whole equation will turn into an equation. You can think of it as it will turn into equation for Karnataka. But then when d1 becomes 1, you are adding b4, which is once again, like, this is a very basic explanation, but you are adding a coefficient which is the difference between Maharashtra and Karnataka. So basically, you are altering from Karnataka to Maharashtra by flipping this light switch. If it's on off, that kind of default state, and the whole equation is working for Karnataka. So that's the intuitive way to think of dummy variables. So there's nothing wrong with the fact that we are only including one, and once again in the next tutorial we will talk more about why it is bad idea to include both dummy variables. Today we have got a very exciting topic, statistical significance. And it's very exciting because I know that from my experience, from my career, it's a question that it's always asked, or at least you ask yourself this question: is my result statistically significant or not? Or are these insights statistically significant or not? And if you don't understand statistical significance, then it's a question that you dread from your manager or the person that you are reporting to, because you cannot substantiate your results. You found some stuff, but you don't know if it's right or wrong. And in this section, we are going to be exploring this concept in a lot of detail, and we are going to referencing it a lot, and you will get a great understanding. Hopefully, you will be able to build a strong understanding of statistical significance. However, in this tutorial, what we are going to focus on is behind statistical significance of how you can link how you feel about an experiment to what actually statistical significance is. So let's have a look. All right. So here we have got experiment, a coin toss. I know it's always a coin toss, but a coin toss is, in all fairness, a great example to get started. There's only two possible outcomes. and you already done this so many times in your life that you know that kind of what to expect, and that's why it will help us to build intuition. So there are two possible versions of two possible situations, kind of like we are going to start talking about a hypothesis testing right now. We are talking about a hypothesis testing with thinking about two possible alternative universe, if you will, if you want to put it that way. So one possible universe is that in that universe it's a fair coin, in that scenario, in that environment, but probably I like the way to put it as in the universe. So in that universe there's a fair coin. So that's our original assumption. As go to the H0, that's the null hypothesis that we are starting off with, and then H1 is the alternative universe or the alternative hypothesis, sometimes also called as HA. And in this universe, this is not a fair coin. So we want to understand which universe do we live in, or which situation are we actually dealing before. What's the truth? That's what we are trying to access. Is it a fair coin? Is the null hypothesis correct, or it is not a fair coin? And then the alternative hypothesis is correct. And so the way we are gonna go about this is we are going to assume that S0 or null hypothesis is true. So again, to assume they will live in the first universe, and then based on our experiment, we are going to see if we can contradict that, if we are going to come to a contradiction and say, oh, actually our assumption was incorrect. And we will talk more about that towards the end of the tutorial. But for now, let's assume that you have got a coin that you are tossing, that somebody is going to toss just now, and you are assuming it's a fair coin. We live in that universe. So the coin is tossed the first time and the result is tails. The question is, how do you feel about this figure? Forget about the statistic for a second. How do you feel about this? Do you feel that this is a fair coin or a coin is rigged? You probably feel that it is likely a fair coin. This is totally probable outcome in that universe that we have assumed we live in the H0 universe. The probability of that is 50%, so it could have been head, could have been tails, no problem. Then the coin is tossed second time and tails again. How do you feel about this now? Do you feel that the coin is rigged, or do you feel that this is a fair coin? Well, let's look at the probability of this happening in our universe that we are living uh, in the H0 hypothesis. The probability of that happening, if this is a fair coin, is 25%. So no big deal could happen. It could happen, right? Then the coin is tossed again and again. It's tails. Okay, so what? How do you feel about that now? What do you feel about having three coins, three times the same coin as tossed, and you get every single its tails? Well, you know, it might be a bit suspicious, but it's fairly okay because in our universe in which we live in the H0 universe where the coin is assumed to be fair, this could have happened, and the probability happening is 12%. But then that coin is tossed again, and guess what? It's tails again. Alright, so are you getting a bit suspicious now? Do you feel that if this were a fair coin, this would be quite hard for this to happen? Well, in the universe, and we assume we live in the H0 universe where the null hypothesis is assumed to be true, or when the null hypothesis is true and we assume we are in that universe. Well, in that case, this could have happened with the probability of 6%. All right. And then the coin is tossed again and again. It is tails. Now, how do you feel about it? How do you feel about seeing somebody toss a coin and then getting tails every single time? Literally 5 times in a row. Well, you feel a bit weird. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm assuming you feel a bit uneasy about that. Did you feel that something might be going on here? Something is a bit not right. It's a bit suspicious that this coin is has had tails 5 times in a row, and your feeling is correct. Your feeling is natural because the probability of this happening, if we assume that it is a fair coin, the probability of this happening is only 3%. So if we assume that we live in a universe where the null hypothesis is true, where the coin is a fair coin, we would have only seen this with the likelihood of 3%, meaning that you would have to watch this experiment on 33 different occasions. Like you watch it today, you watch it tomorrow, you watch it another day. You will have to watch it on 33 different days or 33 different times. This experiment of 5 coin toss would have to be conducted only once you would see this result, so it's a very low probability, and that's why you are feeling of this is something's going on here is completely valid, completely justified. But then let's see what happens. A coin is tossed again, and this time it gets what? Tails again. I know you are probably expecting heads, now it's tails again. What do you think this is going on here? How do you feel about this coin? Do you feel that it's a still fair coin? Do you feel that our assumption that it's a fair coin is correct, or do you feel uneasy about that assumption? Do you feel that something might be suspicious here? And if you feel there's something very suspicious here, you are again very well, just for even more than previously, because the possibility of that happening is about 1% only. And then what is going on here is that the probability of this happening is dropping as you get more and more tails. And in terms of this course, in further down, we will be operating with the term p-value. In fact, we have already seen p-values when we looked at the z-score table previously, when we were looking up the z-scores. Well, in that table in the middle, what you have is actually a p-value. So you can see that the p-value is dropping out simply. The probability of this happening, given that we are in the universe where the null hypothesis is true. And this is very important to understand that if we in this universe, this edge universe, then this is what the p-value look like. It's very unlikely that you will get 6 tails in a row. However, if you think about it for a second, if we were in this universe where it's not a fair coin, where it's a, for example, it's a weighted coin and both sides of the coin are tails, that if you have a coin like that, if you were in this universe, then these p-values are completely different. They wouldn't be like this. The p-values would be 100%, 100%, 100%, 100%, hundreds and hundreds. And so if we lived in the second universe, we wouldn't get that feeling. We would totally be comfortable of this because we know that the coin has 2 tails on each side. There's a tails on the coin, and therefore we would be totally compatible with the one tails and our own 2 tails and our 3, 4 or 5, 6 tails in a row. We wouldn't get an uneasy feeling about it if we lived in the H1 universe. However, the way hypothesis testing works is that we assume we live in this universe over here at the top, the null hypothesis universe, and then we want to see that we will get whatever our experiment is. Will we get uneasy and uneasy feeling about? And this uneasy feeling in mathematical terms, you can't just go up to your boss and say, or your manager or your client, your guys just go and say, I had an uneasy feeling about this. I don't think it's true. Of course, they have to put in mathematical terms, and that's where statistical significance comes in. So statistical significance is basically this line over here, as simple as that 5%. So that's where you start getting this uneasy feeling, just after the 6%, you started being very suspicious about things going on, and that's about right. That's because as soon as something is 5% or less likely to happen, that's the alpha here. Then that is like 5% is like 1 out of 20. So that's where we the line, and we say okay, so that's it's so unlikely, I'm so unlikely to see this by random, that I'm going to reject this null hypothesis. I'm going to say that because I'm seeing this and it was so unlikely to happen at random, this can't be true. And that's where you say that I am confident, I'm rejecting this whole null hypothesis with 95% confidence, that I'm 95% sure that we don't live in this universe. There's a 5% chance that we do, but I'm 95% sure that we don't live in this universe. I'm going to reject that hypothesis, and I'm going to state that we live in a universe where this coin is actually rigged. I mean, we live in that universe where this coin is not actually a fair coin. And you can set this confidence level to whatever you like, and you can set it to 10%, and you would be rejecting over here. You can set it to 1%, you could be rejecting over here. So it depends on your experiment. Most of the time 95 is a good level to go with, but sometimes, especially in medical trials and things like that, where it's people's lives depends on that, the result or the confirmation or not confirmation uh, are like where there is whether or not we reject the null hypothesis. In most cases, you might want to sometimes require that you said it to 99%. So depends on your experiment and on your what you are doing with those results. But generally speaking, this is what's the significance all about. It's the point where, in human intuitive terms, you get uneasy about the null hypothesis being true, and you get super suspicious about it. In mathematical terms, is just where you draw the line and you say, okay, I have enough confidence, or like this is a sufficient level of confidence for me to reject the null hypothesis. So I actually am going to state that we live in this alternate universe. Welcome back to the Ultimate Data Science course, and I am super excited about today. I have got an incredible tutorial prepared for you. We are going to cover off every important topic, and that is how to build models step by step. I couldn't hold myself. I had to add that extra line step by step to the name of the tutorial because that is exactly what we are going to be looking at. I am going to give you a framework for several different methods, and it's all going to be step by step. So let's jump straight into it. Do you remember that good old days when we had one dependent variable and one independent variable? Everything was easy and we just had a simple linear regression that we had to build, and everything worked great. But now in our data, we have all these columns. Those easy days are gone now. All of these columns are potential predictors for dependent variables, and there's just so many of them, and we need to decide which we want to keep and which one we want to throw out. And you will ask, why do we need to throw out columns, or do we need to get rid of data? Why can't we just use everything in our model? This is the process of building the model, selecting the right variables. So how do we construct a model? Well, there are 5 methods that we are going to discuss of building models. Number one is all in. The second method is backward elimination. Third method is forward selection. Fourth one is bidirectional elimination. And the fifth number is the score comparison. We are going to talk about each one of them just now, because before we do, I wanted to say that sometimes you will hear stepwise regression. So stepwise regression actually refers to number 2, 3 and 4, because as it likes really the true step-by-step methods. But sometimes you will hear people say stepwise regression in reference to just not before. So there will replace bidirectional elimination of stepwise regression, and that's fine. That's normal. That's just because that's the more, as you will see from what we discuss. Bidirectional elimination is kind of more general approach, and when people say stepwise regression, they kind of by default they will imply that is the bidirectional elimination, and you have to infer from there. Okay, so let's move on to our methods. Method number one is all in. It's not a technical term, I just call it all in. Basically what it means is just throw in all your variables. Sometimes we just discuss we shouldn't do. When would you do that? One is if you have prior knowledge, if you know that these exact variables are the ones are your true predictors. You don't have to build anything, you already know that this is the case. You might know it from domain knowledge, or you might know it because you have done this model before. Somebody just gave you these variables and said please build a model. Well, then you don't really have a choice, you just build the model. The other one is you have to perhaps, like, I can't really think of good examples here, but maybe there's some framework in your company that says that you have to use these variables, right? So it's kind of similar to prior knowledge, but it's not your decision. It's you might want to do it differently, but there is a framework. Like maybe a bank, and to predict credit, like with the likelihood of somebody defaulting on or something, they have to use these specific variables once again. I'm not sure in which industries that would be the case, but perhaps that could be the case. And number three, you would use this method if you are preparing for backward elimination type of construction, uh, which is our next step. So let's move on the backward elimination. Okay, so here comes step by step stuff. You might want to get your pens out and write these things down, because we are going to have a truly step by step method now. All right, backward elimination. First thing, step one, you have to select a significance level to stay in the model. So by default, we are going to go with the 5%, so 0.05, and we are going to use it in the next step. So it's at the beginning you decide on this significant level. Step two, you feed the full model with all possible predictors. So you kind of do that all in approach, which we just talked about, and you put all of your variables into your model. And now we are going to start getting rid of them. Step 3, you considered the predictor with the highest p-value. So remember those p-values that we talked about, in for instance in a Gretel or in any software, or you can see them. So so after you fitted the model, you will see the one with the highest p-value. So if p is greater than your significance level, then you go to the step 4, and step 4 is you have to remove that predict. I mean, you have to remove that predictor to basically the variable that has the highest p value. And from step 4, you fit the model before this variable. So there's a star here, because I just wanted to remind myself to tell you that if you just remove the variables, obviously you can just say that, okay, now I have got the new model. You have to actually refit them. All you have to recreate them all, rebuild it with the fewer number of variables. So if you had maybe, I don't know, 100 variables, and you removed them, one of them, you have 99 now. Well, you have to rebuild it, so the coefficient are going to be different, the constant is going to be different, and you need to perform that step, because once you remove variable, it affects all the other variables in your whole regression. And so after step 5, you go back to step 3. Once again, you look for the variable with the highest value in your new model, you take it out, you remove. So basically step 4, you remove it, you fit the model again with one less variable, and so on. You keep doing that until you come to a point where where even the variable of the highest p value and the p value is still less than your significance level. So if the condition p is greater than significance level is not correct, then you don't go just you have to just ignore the fourth step. You go to the final model, and this case the our final model is ready, and we can finish the model, and your model is ready. So as soon as all of the variables that you have left in your model are there, p values are less than the significance level, your model's prepared. So that's how the backward elimination method works. Let's move on to the next one. Next method is the forward selection. So this is, it sounds like the opposite, and the picture in the top right corner does illustrate the opposite, but it's a much more complex than just simply reversing the procedure. You will see that it's much larger procedure. We started with step 1, select the significance level to enter the model, and in this case, once again we are going to select a 5%. I mean 0.05. Then we go to the step 2. We fit all possible simple regression models. So we take the dependent variable and we create a regression model with every single independent variable that we have. And then we select out of all those models, we select the one which has the lowest p value for the independent variable. So you can already see that that is in itself a lot of work. Then what we do is to move to step 3. We keep this variable that we have just chosen, and we fit all other possible models with one extra predictor added to the ones we usually have. So what does that mean? Uh, that means we have selected a simple linear regression with one variable. Now we need to construct all possible linear regression with two variable, where one of these two variable is the one of the variables. So basically we add on all of the other variable one by one. So we choose, okay, let's add on this variable, and then let's add on the next one, like, but separately. So we construct all possible two variable linear regression, and just definitely keeping the variable that uh, uh, we we have selected. So what do we do after that? Out of all these variables, two variable regression we considered, then one where the new variable that we added
at the lowest p-value. So if that p-value is less than our significance level, meaning that you know that variable is a good one, it's a significant variable, then we moved back to step 3. What does that mean? Means that now we have a regression with two variables, and now we will add a third variable. We will try all possible variables that we have left is as our third variable, and then out of all those models with three variables, we will go to step 4 and we will select again one of the lowest p-value for the third variable we added, and I will keep doing that. So basically we will keep growing our regression model, but not just randomly. We will be actually selecting out of all the possible combination every single time and growing at one variable at a time, and then we will only stop when the variable that we have added, it has a p-value that is greater than our significance level. So when this condition is less than significance level is not true, then we don't go to step 3, we finish the regression. Well, because the variable through we just added is no longer, is not significant anymore, and we also know that we selected that one with the lowest p-value, so there is no other variable that we can add that its p-value will be greater, will be less than a significance level. Any regression which is from then onwards, it will the variable, the new variable will always be insignificant. So here we finish the regression, and the trick here is that you that you should not keep the current model, but you have to keep the previous one, and that makes sense because you have just added a variable which is insignificant. So what's the point? So that's how forward selection works. I know it's a bit confusing, but just try to wrap your head around and maybe read through this instruction one more time. It does make a lot of sense when you, and it's like next we are moving on to the bidirectional elimination. So this one, as you can assume, or perhaps yes, it combines the two step one. Step one is select a significant level to stay or to enter, and significant level to stay. So we are going to select in both cases, but it's up to you what to select, and say to perform the next step of the forward selection, meaning that the one that we just discussed. So where new variables, when they enter in order to enter, they have to be less than the significance level to enter. So basically add a new variable based on the forward selection method. Step 3, perform all the steps of backward elimination process. So now you should have two variables. Start getting rid of them and see if you can get rid of any of them, and then move back to the step 2. So then grow by another variable, and every time you go by variable, so let's say you were at 5, uh, 5 variable and went to 6. Since you went to 6, you have to form all the steps of backwardly mesh, so you don't just eliminate one variable. If you can eliminate 1 2 3, however many you can, and then from there you go back to step 2, and so this is a very iterative process. You keep doing that until at some point you cannot add new variables. No variables can enter, or no old can exit. uh, then you proceed to the finish because your model is ready to call. You can add anything, you can take anything out of after the model. You have created the model. So this is one of the more tedious method. Of course you would have to get a computer to do this for you, because otherwise you would go insane putting variables in and taking them out. But now how that's how bidirectional elimination works, and once again some people call it stepwise regression. And finally all possible models, finally we have talked about all possible models. There you go, your model is ready. And finally, so where how we have come to our conclusion. We have 5 methods of building models. So that is all in, second backward elimination, and third is forward selection, fourth was bidirectional elimination, and the last one is the score comparison. So when we are going to be looking at in this tutorial, in order to get our head around how to build models step by step, how and get some practice, is the backward elimination process, because it is the fastest one or all of them, and you will still get to see exactly how the step by step method works. And plus we will throw in few extra tricks along the way to make sure our models are very robust. Can't wait to get started. Let's